So there's a video circulating around the internet, TikTok in particular, where a young white woman is commenting on a situation that occurred where she was at a concert, an outdoor concert, and she was there with several of her friends, and this would normally be the perfect environment in which a social setting in which men and women could get together and meet each other. But on this particular occasion, there was a group of men nearby, and although the men were, as she described it, gawking at her and her friends, they didn't bother to approach. And so the question is, why are men not approaching women? Why are men not approaching modern women? And, there have been a lot of people who have been wondering, speculating on this. And to me, it's pretty obvious. But to finish the story, the young woman's friend feigned going to the bathroom. And then on her way back, she stopped, I guess, within earshot of the gentleman, very close to them. And she stayed there for about 10 minutes. I'm assuming the woman is attractive. She apparently made eye contact with the fellas. The fellas made eye contact with her. And they still, although they looked, they didn't bother to speak to her. And so the woman came back to her group, and I guess the ladies talked about it. And they were a bit distraught. Now, the thing she did mention was that there were a group of older fellas, and she mentioned their age, about 65 years old, and those gentlemen actually did approach the young woman, but apparently she didn't give them any play either. Now, the woman who was doing the video, she looked to be in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, I'm not sure. Definitely a millennial. And, and for you guys who haven't realized it, millennials are not that young anymore. I think millennials at this point are in their 40s and 30s for the most part. And, they're dealing with the situation of, mate selection and mate finding, and the field is not the same. And so the question then arises for this particular woman, why is it that men are not approaching women? The first thing is that men are cautious. Let's start with that. Men are not just going to approach women, especially in this day and age. The other thing that you have to understand, and this is something that men have always dealt with, there is the chance of rejection. But modern day women, or when I say the field has changed, now you're looking at unreasonable rejection. There was a time where if you dress nice, if you smell good, if your clothes were nice and neat, maybe you had a nice watch on, then you stood a chance of being able to speak to a woman and her interacting with you. But these days, unless you just, come off the top with, I make more than $100,000 a year, you're 6 feet 6 inches tall with the outlines of a six-pack being visible underneath your shirt, then you stand a chance of not only getting rejected, right? But you stand a chance of getting rejected in the worst way. And here's the thing. And the reason is, of course, because women don't want every man to attract them or to speak to them. They want a select group of men to speak to them. Average women think they're better than average men, which is ludicrous. These women who are 5s and 6s think they're better than a man who's a 5 or 6. But that has a lot to do with hypergamy, where women want to date up as opposed to dating on their level. They're constantly trying to find another branch that they could climb higher on the in the man pecking order. So if they have a fella who's a 7, even if they're a 4, they want to see if they can get themselves an 8, even though typically the things for which men seek women or find attractive in women begin to diminish in women the older they get. Men typically want women who are fit, feminine, youthful, fertile, which signifies youthfulness, which signifies fertility. But amazingly, women's standards seem to increase the older they get. Nevertheless, you know, rejection is not the worst thing that you have to deal with modern women. It's already nerve-wracking for men. It's always been nerve-wracking for men to go approach women. But at least back in the day, the worst thing that could happen is you could get rejected. She says no, and you go about your business. These days, you could catch a charge. These days, you might get your face plastered all over social media with the label of creepy or pervy or stalky or stalkery, whatever the version of stalking is. Your whole reputation, your career down the toilet, destroyed. Because some woman posted you up on the internet, now you're a social pariah, you're a clown, and you're humiliated. And of course, as we know, the internet is forever. So wherever you go, that's your label. We see it happening all the time in public fitness centers and gymnasiums. Women label a man creepy because he was sitting at a workout machine and happens to be caught on video. And even if he looks up, not even looking at the woman, she will swear up and down that he was staring at her, gawking at her. Even in the situation that the young lady mentioned earlier, where she was at the concert, her terminology was, these men were gawking at us. These men were gawking at my friend. As if their value, as if they're so irresistible that men can't help but just stare at them. They don't even know that the men were even looking at them. These guys could have just been looking around, speaking to each other, having had a few drinks. I've seen it happen. It's conceivable. But nevertheless, aside from rejection, you're looking at possibly getting Me Too'd. You're possibly getting your reputation destroyed. Ladies, what you're dealing with is 70 years of unchecked feminist rage. And now you're meeting the effects that this has had on men. You called us all sorts of names. You told us that we're beneath you and unworthy of you for the past 70 years. You've told them that you're strong, independent, and don't need a man. But now you want these men to be chivalrous and to approach you as a gentleman would a lady, to take her hand and offer her the finer things in life. But you've made video after video telling men not to approach you. Matter of fact, you've told men not to approach her in public. You've referred to that as creepy, stalky. You've told them that they're perverts. And now what's happened is your strategy has backfired on you. I understand what was happening. You wanted to project to the world that we are so beautiful and so attractive that men just can't keep their eyes and their hands off of us, and they just want to touch us and look at us. They find us so desirable. They have to speak to us, and we're busy on our way going to our jobs at the social welfare clinic that we earned after getting our degree in social studies and history. But it's backfired. That's what happened. It's backfired. Here you were trying to project your value, and now men see you as worthless, not even worth approaching, and you don't like it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. Let me say that again. the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Modern women you don't even qualify for these men that you say that you want. And the reason you don't qualify is because of your bad attitudes. It's because your body count is like the LA Lakers versus the Denver Nuggets, 112 to 105 in the NBA Finals. And men don't want that bad boys leftovers anymore. We don't want Chad and Tyrone's leftovers. We don't want it anymore. We don't want to help you raise your children. And your reputation is tarnished. You're not worth it. You're not worth the trouble associated with it. Here's the thing you have to understand, ladies. You did this to yourselves. You did it to yourself. Just because a man finds you attractive doesn't mean he wants to speak with you, because we know what comes along with that. Modern women across the board come with the same package of drama and responsibility. And when you do the cost-benefit analysis, it's not worth it. Let me explain something to you. I want to take this time to talk to all the fellas. Look, fellas, look. There's no need to down another group of men, whether they be black, white, brown, or whatever, when it comes to these modern women. I saw a group of brothers commenting on the fact that there are a lot of women of other ethnicities getting with black men. On the flip side, I see a lot of white men commenting on the fact that there are a lot of black women who are getting with white men. And you fellas act as though you're getting a better deal when all of these are modern women. Somebody type modern women. Modern women in America are the same. They might have a different attitude. They might go about doing things a little different. But when you see them in court, they're all the same. They all have the same expectations, the same ridiculous expectations that they place on men. Yeah, you might get a little different cultural here. This one might treat you a little better on the back end. This one might treat you a little better on the front end. But at the end of the day, they're all the same. You're just swapping your crap for their crap, and you're telling the guys over there that the reason that their crappy women are coming to you is because you're somehow better. And at the end of the day, it's all just the same group of women being swapped out. So no need to down other men who are dealing with the same foolishness in modern women that you're dealing with. Because at the end of the day, a leopard never changes its spots. So that black woman that you're dealing with is going to be pretty much the same as she was with those black dudes. That white woman that those white guys are running away from, who they refer to as shallow and ego-driven and bossy and all the other adjectives that white men use for white women, you're going to get the same woman. Now, maybe you'll be able to deal with it because it's new. Maybe your tolerance is a little bit different for it because you haven't had an overdose of it, but it's still the same crap. So for the most part, if you're dealing with American women, fellas, you're going to pick your poison. But let's not down one group of men as though they are somehow less than because their crappy group of women has decided to shift over you. They're all modern women. And I segue into saying that I stopped dating and I stopped approaching American women like many men did when I started traveling overseas. In my 30s and 40s, I was just like you guys. I dated American women. I married one. I would approach them on a regular basis in the same settings, but somewhere around about 2014, I start traveling overseas on a regular basis. And I realized at that point that Western women are not the norm. I realized that when I start traveling overseas, that foreign women, especially in developing countries, have no problem initiating a conversation with a man. They don't mind approaching men. Matter of fact, even in situations where you approach them, they're oftentimes more receptive, if not extremely receptive. The reason is because those women actually like men. Those women actually see the benefit of men. Because of the language barrier, they haven't been fully indoctrinated into this feminist doctrine. First wave, second wave, third wave, and really fourth wave feminism has not hit these Latin American countries. I'm not saying that it won't eventually. I'm not saying that they are the same women they were before feminism came upon the world. But in these foreign countries, number one, you don't have the technology that causes for women to believe that they don't need men because they don't need a man to get their groceries. They got these jobs that pay them a certain amount of money. They have police. Everything is convenient. So they really don't need a man's labor, in their opinion. And so they can do that in the United States. But again, feminism is a first world issue. It is not a developing world issue or a third world issue, because women realize they still need men. More importantly, because of that, they're inviting and they're open. But as I say, you never know a person until they think you don't need you. So these same women that we're dealing with in these modern countries, if you take a woman from one of these developing countries and put her in the United States, inside of 20 years, when she subsumes the culture, she'll be just like these modern women, if not worse. The modern women in Western countries. So don't fool yourselves, fellas. It's not you, it's the environment, it's the law, it's the culture that keeps the women like that. Nevertheless, when you go to foreign countries, women will approach you. And they're receptive to you. That's why a lot of guys are saying, I'm out, passport bros, tally ho. That's been my experience. Men have other options. It was different, ladies, before Me Too. It was different before men realized all they need is a passport and they can be one of these global globetrotters and go see women who are oftentimes more receptive, in better shape, and more feminine than the typical modern woman in the United States, the UK, Australia, etc. And they don't want to be labeled as pariahs. And as far as these young men, why don't they approach you? They've spent the first 15 years of their life with their face in a cell phone. So they may or may not be properly socialized to even interact with women. Another thing is, they've been told their whole life that men and women are equal. So why should they go out of their way to do for you? In fact, why shouldn't you do for them? Drizzle, drizzle. If you want to talk to one of these men, you should go cash app him some money. Drizzle, drizzle. Right? You're equal, right? That's what you ladies wanted. You're equal. Nevertheless, these fellas don't feel that they need to approach you. They don't want to deal with the variables. They don't want to deal with the possibility of rejection. They may not know how to approach you. They don't see you as being that important. Many of these young men, I believe there's a large percent of young men who are 30 years old who are still virgins. So for them, video games are sufficient. They don't wrap their manhood up into how many women they can lay. That was a criteria for manhood of a time gone by. That's not where they are right now. And you can thank yourselves for that, because you referred to them as toxic. You referred to men, typical men, for exhibiting typical male behavior as toxic. A man who approaches you on the street, he's a creep. A man who speaks to you loudly, he's catcalling you. He's a stalker. A man who wants to have intimate relationships with you as soon as possible, he's a pervert. Why would these young men want to be labeled as such? No one wants to be called a harasser, especially these young fellas. So that's why the young men aren't approaching you. You don't want the older men approaching you. So now here you are. You're left in a situation where you have to either approach them or you're going to sit there by yourself. Now, the other thing, the elephant in the room that I want to address is the entitlement. The idea that women are so upset that men are not approaching them in public signifies to me that you feel entitled to men's attention. You do. Just like you feel entitled to their resources and their time and their labor, you feel entitled to their attention. Let me explain something to you, ladies. Men don't owe you a hi. They don't owe you a hello. They don't owe you a helping hand. They're not obligated to approach you at a bar or a concert or anywhere at all. You're upset that they won't. It's just a sign of your entitlement. It's just a sign that you feel as though you own men. You feel as though they're your property. They're disposable. They're a utility. And all you have to do to get a new utility, to get a new horse, a workhorse, or a work mule, or a new battery that you can power your lifestyle with for however long until it expires and then you discard it, you feel as though now that these utilities aren't readily approaching you, you feel deprived because you're entitled. You don't see men as autonomous individuals. You don't see us for our humanity. You see us as things to be used and discarded. That's how the modern Western woman feels. You don't even recognize our humanity. No man has ever gone to a concert or a public place and then got on the internet and complained that the women that were at that event did not approach him or the group of friends, men that he was with. No man has ever done that. And the reason we haven't done that or don't do that is because we have not had instilled in us those feelings of entitlement that women owe us anything. Matter of fact, you've gone out of your way to let us know that in a society that we built, the inventions, the vast majority of which that we developed, that has made life easier, that we've given, the lives that we've sacrificed to protect the countries and the societies that we live in, you still will go out of your way to tell us that women don't owe men anything, not even respect. And in the black community, women don't even owe us a smile or a cheerful greeting. You can be as ugly as you want to be with your comments, as hurtful and rejectful as you want to be with rebuffing a man's advances, and there's nothing he can do. You don't even owe him respect, even if he came up to you courteously. If you find this man unattractive, if you deem him unworthy of you with your average at best selves, shout out to Kevin Samuels, you will be justified in rejecting him according to society's standards. And now, as they say, all roads have come to an end. The roles have reversed. Not even reversed. The men are now indifferent to your present and you don't like it. But this is what you asked for. You cannot pray for rain and then get mad at the storm clouds. For decades, you've told men that you're strong, you're independent, you don't need a man. For decades, you've told men that them approaching you is creepy and it's an invasion on your space. They don't have a right to your body. They don't have a right to your attention. Your personage is for you. You've gone so far as to develop notions of 30-year-old sexual assault claims that happened in the 70s and 80s. So men now have to compensate you for 40-year-old events that you claim were non-consensual from 40 years ago. My gosh. And society is forced to accept that as truth because the woman is always right. Who wants to get involved in that? Ladies, put yourself in the position of these men. Why in the heck would a man approach you, considering all the risk associated with you, knowing he's just going to get the same old response, the same old outcome as the rest of the men have gotten? They'd rather play video games. They'd rather get their passports and go overseas. They'd rather stay by themselves. In the black community, 51% of black men aren't married and don't have children, which means they want to have nothing to do with you. That means some of them might have a sexual relationship with you, but for the most part, the majority of men don't want to have anything to do with modern women. What does that say? What does it say that men would rather travel overseas, interact with women who may not speak their language, who don't understand their culture, who don't understand their background, than deal with you who are right here in their vicinity? Especially considering how lazy men are about sexual interaction. Dudes will bang the fat, out-of-shape chick who's at the club when it closes, just because she's right there. Talk about low standards, especially if they have enough alcohol in them, so that their judgment is impaired. But instead, considering men's low standards, instead of dealing with modern women, they rather hop on a plane, American Airlines, United Airlines, wherever, to get away from you. Says a lot. Ladies, you're the problem. You want to know why men aren't approaching modern women? You're the problem. It's not men's problem. You got what you asked for. You got exactly what you asked for. You're the problem why men aren't approaching modern women. Your attitudes stink like a skunk's backside. Many of you are not worth a relationship. You got too many psychological issues associated with dating the wrong kind of men, too much baggage. You got kids out of wedlock. You're not as attractive as you think you are. Your job, your career is not worth anything to a man because that's not what he's looking for. You don't know how to deal with men. You don't respect men. You don't appreciate men. You don't appreciate the sacrifice that we make as men. You're not even courteous. That's why men are not approaching women.